G'day fanatics, it's Lenny here and I'm with Wol. The other day we had a chat to a really important bloke on the international turf scene. There's, in my, I suppose, 7 years of hanging around in the turf industries, you meet a lot of people who think they're important, but they're not really. Wol's been in the turf industry a lot longer than I have. He'd probably tell you more stories about people who think they're more important than what they actually are. But we met a guy named Billy Skaggs, who is probably one of the most important guys going around.
Yeah.
He runs a company called ITGAP, ITGAP, which is the International Turf Grass Accreditation Program.
Yeah.
And its Australian arm is AUSGAP, which is AUSGAP, AUSGAP. Now, AUSGAP, so ITGAP oversees AUSGAP, and they sign off on the certifications to make sure that the turf grass you pay for is actually what you get.
I think it stands for, AUSGAP stands for Australian Genetic Assurance and Purity.
Something like that, yeah. So the guy who runs that in Australia is Mick Sutton, who's a bloody good bloke, knows so much about turf, it's not funny. And he is the guy who goes to turf farms who are a part of the AUSGAP program. He inspects the turf for its quality, for its purity, for make sure it doesn't have weeds and rubbish in it, so that if you're paying for, let's say, Tiff Tuff or Sir Walter, that's what you're getting. Because for a long time there were some charlatans who would breed or not breed, but grow an inferior turf and then palm it off as being something different, wouldn't they? Yeah. Charge you a fortune for it. But so the AUSGAP program, if you buy turf through the AUSGAP program, which is part of, which is, I suppose they're in partnership a little bit with Lawn Solutions. They oversee all the Lawn Solutions farms. They're the ones who sign off to certify that it's quality gear.
I suppose the reason why you have genetic assurance and that is primarily if you watch the video of us talking to Brian, the amount of work that goes into producing like a good turf grass cultivar. You want to be damn certain as a business and as the consumer that you are getting what you pay for. So if you pay for all those benefits that Tiff Tuff offers or Sir Walter offers, you want to be certain.
The low nutrition and the drought tolerance.
Yeah, and the shade tolerance.
The same with Sir Grange. You want to make sure that that's a pretty hefty price for grass, but it's quality grass. So you want to make sure that you get
the quality that you pay for.
quality grass that you pay for.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, we had a chat to Bill Skaggs, who is he's a red hat wearer, because he had a red hat, didn't he? Is he from Georgia?
Yeah, he is. Brian's from Texas. Billy's from Georgia.
Yeah.
Because ITGAP originally got set up as part of Georgia University to ensure purity of the grasses from their stable. So a lot of those Tiff varieties initially
from Tifton, which is Georgia University of Georgia.
Yeah. So if you've played, it's one of the campuses. So if you've played golf before, from northern New South Wales up through Queensland, and even played bowls in the southern states, most of those bowls greens and golf greens are Tiff varieties. Yeah, they'll be Tiff Green,
Eagle, Tiff Dwarf.
Yep. Yeah, Tiff 3-8.
Yep. They were all bred and developed at
Tifton University in Georgia. So
yeah. So here's our chat with Brian. It was a good chat.
With Billy.
Oh yeah, sorry, Brian, Billy, and I haven't said the Redlands Dolphins yet.
Redlands Dolphins.
Yeah, I know. I've done it so many times. I've tried to film the start of this video, and every time I've said the Redlands Dolphins, but it's Redcliffe Dolphins.
And it's not even Redcliffe.
And it's not even Redcliffe. It's just the Dolphins.
The Dolphins. But how do they stuff that up?
I don't know. We're just going to keep calling them Redcliffe Dolphins.
I suppose the Dolphins have a place that they live in.
The ocean.
The Ocean Dolphins. That's probably what they should be called.
They should be. Anyway, before we get sidetracked too much, here's our chat with Billy Skaggs, who is a very important guy in the turf industry, and thanks heaps to Mick Sutton for lining up this chat with Bill. It was great, and then we had steak sandwiches. Cheers. Good. G'day there, fanatics. It's Lenny here with Will, and we're with Bill. Will and Bill. Billy is, what do you do? Hang on, I've got it written here. ITGAP. ITGAP. which you're the program manager and Georgia Crop Improvement Agency.
Yep. First of all, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. I got involved with ITGAP, which is our International Turfgrass Genetic Assurance Program, by coming to Georgia Crop Improvement. A little bit about Georgia Crop Improvement. In the states, every state has one, per the Federal Seed Act, has one agency, which is the seed and turf certifier for that state.
Yeah.
And in Georgia, we really started turfgrass certification for warm season grasses. We work in all crops. We work with peanuts, cotton, soybeans, corn, wheat, oats, all kinds of crops. But back in the 90s, long before my time, we began to see, as an industry and as a whole in the southeast, but really around the nation, that a grass that was sold and marketed as Tifway, which is the oldest variety of warm season Bermuda grass in our area, that grass was being sold that they called Tifway, and there wasn't much Tifway in it. You know,
Which that's a big problem well, it has been prior to probably like ITGAP and AUSGAP in our industry.
Yeah.
Like, I guess from that, you know, can you explain to the fanatics, you know, how to overcome that problem? Like, what is certification?
Sure. Well, having been involved in you know, seeded crops, annual crops for so long, we already had protocols and standards for how often crops should be inspected, how many off types or contaminants would be allowed per acre or per meter or whatever it may be. So at the time, they sort of took the seeded standards for crops, and through over a period of years determined, sort of modified that for turfgrass.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, when we go out and inspect turfgrass fields, can only have, for us, one off type or contaminant per acre.
Yep.
Can only have one common weed per 100 square feet. No noxious weeds, which for us would be the prominent ones.
You.
Yeah, well, yeah. For us, the biggest problem is nutsedge or nutgrass.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back in the 90s, they started this program to try to really bring Georgia varieties in particular back up to where they should be.
Yeah.
You know, at the time, Tifway was the dominant variety. A little bit later, Tif Sport came out, which is a big grass for a number of years on athletic fields.
That existed in Australia for a bit for the fanatics at home. There is actually, I could take you to a sports field that is still Tif Sport.
Tif Sport was popular for a number of years. Tif Grand, Tif Sport and Tif Grand out of Dr. Wayne Hanna's program, Dr. Schwartz's predecessor. That was a big one for years. And with Tif Sport and Tif Grand, the model kind of changed in how these grasses were released, licensed, and then marketed. And so when you have a licensing agent who gets an exclusive right to market and sell Tif Grand or Tif Sport, they want to make sure it's done right, because they're putting a tremendous amount of money in there to market it, to brand it, to spread the word about it.
Yep.
And so the last thing you want, I mean, you all know how it is.
Yeah.
If you sell a bad product, people tell everybody.
Yes.
If you sell a good product, they might tell one or two people.
Yeah.
So at the time, it was really to try to maintain the purity, the quality, and the integrity of those new varieties, and make sure that they were handled appropriately, that they were cared for properly. And also another part of that is make sure all these varieties have a royalty stream. Dollars are coming back to the University of Georgia to fund further breeding.
If you'll put the effort in to breed the thing, to like Brian does, to come up with it, you should absolutely have the right.
Yeah.
Because that funds his further research.
On average, you look at turf, and you throw turf and all the annual crops in there together, it takes 12 to 14 years from the first selection until it's released.
Yeah.
And so that's a heck of a lot of money that goes into it. And as you said, to further fund programs like Dr. Schwartz's and the other crops, you got to have that revenue coming back in.
Have to.
And if you're not monitoring and making sure how much of those grasses are out there, if they're not being pirated and stolen and planted other places, you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how turfgrass certification got started.
It's also certifiable, making sure or ensuring that the end user gets what they're paying for.
Absolutely. When to Dr. Schwartz's comment earlier about with annual crops with cotton or peanuts, varieties don't last very long typically, 2 or 3 years and the next one's coming out.
I'm a big fan of peanut brittle. Big fan of peanut brittle.
I can send you some. I can take care of that for you. But with turf grasses, this is a perennial crop. I mean, a homeowner buys, Tiff Tough. Hopefully it's in their lawn for 12, 15, 20 years maybe.
Yeah.
It's an expensive product. It's a big investment. You can't just go in and renovate easily. So you want to make sure that, yes, they're getting exactly what they paid for.
A lawn is often the largest living thing at someone's house.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's what the customer spends the most time on.
Yeah.
I mean, you compare, pruning shrubs or maybe, pruning trees or even planting annuals or perennials.
Yeah.
That's an activity that doesn't take that long.
Once a season sometimes.
Yeah. Whereas, on a couch grass, and where we're at, you're mowing twice a week. You're spending a lot of time out there. So it's important that they are getting what they paid for.
But going back to what you said earlier about the retail thing, about people tell people whether it's good or not. I spent a bit of time in retail, and from memory, it was like if you have a good retail experience, that you'll tell 3 people, and they will tell 3 people. If you have a bad retail experience, it was something like you will tell 7 people, and they will tell 7 people.
Yeah, I believe it.
So spreading the good message is a lot harder than spreading a bad news message.
Absolutely, and part of the reason for certification was to maintain quality, to maintain brand, so that consumers have confidence. But also it gives confidence to the landscape architect or the golf course designer or whoever might be speccing a job. So sure. they could go buy much cheaper Tifway 419 non-certified, and who in the hell knows what they're getting. Whereas they buy certified Tiff Tough, they know what they're getting. It's a proven commodity. And so it's really helped in a lot of ways in terms of our growers, because as these projects are being spec'd for a particular certified grass, not everybody has certified turf grass, and so it gives them an upper hand in terms of being able to get those jobs. And
going back to our discussion with Brian particularly about drought tolerance with Tiff Tough, if you're designing a project and it has to meet stringent drought tolerant requirements, and someone goes in and puts a cheaper Kikuyu grass in,
it happens.
In America, imagine that.
They'd have the Department of Agriculture on them real quick if they tried to do that. But I mean, the point is well made. It's if a particular job, if a particular environment calls for a grass with these specifications, and you don't get a grass with those specifications, you've set yourself up for failure. You're starting behind from the very beginning.
I suppose what's interesting about the certification program, I think I've seen a little bit of what AUSGAP has become over here, is because you're in such close contact with growers. You're benchmarking, but you're also realizing issues that can happen for these growers on farms. So you're also almost like an extension officer, educating growers on how to grow the product as well. Is that also like part of what certification
it's part of it, and it's funny you mention that. I was an extension officer for 13 years before I ended up at Georgia Crop. So working with growers, going to farms and doing those visits and diagnosing problems, all those things kind of set me up to be in this job. So yes, it's very much about relationships. It's getting to know growers. They have to have confidence in you that when you come out to look at their farm, you're not going to give them a bunch of crap. You're going to shoot straight with them.
That's it.
And we want them to do that with us. If they have a problem, tell us what the problem is, where it is. We'll work with you to try to correct it.
It's about developing that relationship.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
mentioned nutsedge before. I heard probably some of your counterparts, I think it was Scott McElroy, was talking, I think is it a USDA?
Brian nods his head sagely.
It was a USDA, is it a USDA priority controlling nutsedge? I think they've realised that it's almost Kikuyu class.
And the challenge that we're having is we use the same chemistry year after year after year, decade after decade. And so now we're seeing resistance in some herbicides with nutsedge. And we're also seeing that purple nutsedge and yellow nutsedge aren't controlled by the same products. So you have to be able to correctly identify which nutsedge you have. And so, years ago, a lot of our turf farmers were also row crop farmers. They got into growing turf because commodity prices were down. Those weren't the best turf farmers. I mean, just to be completely honest, it was extra income.
They had some learning to do.
So, but over time, what happened in the States, the recession in 2008, our turfgrass acres dropped tremendously. what we found is those that stayed in the turf business were really the committed growers who wanted to do a good job and produce a high quality product. So while that event purged the market and took out a lot of production, what's happened is the build back has been slow and intentional, and we've got much better growers and a heck of a lot better quality product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to solve those kinds of issues, it's much easier to overcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, certification started, you know, in the States. We started turfgrass warm season turfgrass certification, but to AUSGAP, you know, around the early 2000s, we had grasses coming out of the University of Georgia that we had interest all over the world. And similarly, we wanted to make sure that if those grasses, those cultivars were going to be planted in Malaysia or Brazil or Costa Rica or Singapore, that we had some sort of monitoring program for those grasses. And that's how we started ITGAP. Yeah. And we, ITGAP, International Turfgrass Genetic Assurance Program, is run out of Georgia Crop Improvement, and we act as an agent of the University of Georgia Research Foundation. So anytime they license a grass to someone in another country, those growers are required to become ITGAP members. And what that means is they have to do quarterly self-inspections, take photos, document what they're seeing on their farm. Then at least once a year, one of our inspectors goes wherever that location is and do an on-site inspection. So yeah. we've got
you've got heaps of growers in the Maldives, and
we've got
stuff like
well, do you need people to go there?
Yeah. it kind of in ITGAP, other than here in Australia, ITGAP really, we have long-term growers, but a number of them, they'll get a job to build a golf course.
Yeah. And
they need a nursery, and they need a field of Tiff Grant or Tiff Tough. And so they're shorter term projects for us. These are long-time farmers, but they may only grow the grass for 5, 6, 10 years. Project's over, renovations are over, and they moved on to the next project. But with AUSGAP, conversation started back in 2015 with the Turfgrass Group, which is the premier licensing agent in the States for warm season grasses, University of Georgia, us at Georgia Crop Improvement. But it really started with a conversation between some of the guys with Lawn Solutions Australia at the golf industry show in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, right.
They saw some of the varieties that we had. They were interested, so those conversations started in 2015. 2015, 2016, LSA, the leadership came here, came to the States. Some of our representatives went to Australia during that time. And so
junket, we call that a junket.
Yeah. So in 2017,
Mick, were you on that junket?
No.
2017,
we stood up AUSGAP. We helped stand up AUSGAP. What we realized is the number of growers that were here that wanted Tiff Tough and wanted Sir Grange, zoysia grass. There's no way we could manage, ITGAP could manage it here. Yep. And so we still wanted ITGAP, the main thing to remember about certification, whether it's ITGAP or Georgia Crop Improvement, is it is truly a non-biased third-party inspection. It's a quality assurance program that's independent. So by standing up AUSGAP here, I came over they came and spent time with us in 2017, 18. I came here for the first time in 2019, came back in 2020. So they were already off and running, but they felt like it was important for someone from ITGAP to come here and go meet farmers and sort of talk about the big picture, and also to make sure that AUSGAP was fulfilling their responsibilities and obligations per the license. So it's been an awesome relationship. I love coming here more than anywhere else I go. I mean, I've traveled all over. I know. I've traveled all over the States. I've traveled to multiple countries, but hopefully this is going to be an annual trip for me for a long time. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I love it.
Because you got to keep an eye on Mick.
Yeah, well,
that hat too. Like, it might as well be a Redcliffe Dolphins hat, I reckon.
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
This is the hat for the University of Georgia football team, who were our recent national champions.
Yeah.
Wow.
First time in 40 years. So we're pretty proud of this red G.
Is that a Tiff Tough field as well?
At UGA?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
But you guys have the was it Florida?
It's a trial plot, Will.
Well, yeah, that's a sore subject. It's at the University of Florida, our arch rivals. I think they did it just to piss us off, quite frankly.
You know what it is? Brian's got it as a test plot. Their field, it's got 47,000 squares on it.
Yeah, really. No,
One big test plot.
It's funny at UGA, they have had Tifway on that field for 60 years. The groundskeeper there has been there forever. I don't know, 30 years or something. He loves Tifway. He knows how to manage Tifway.
He knows what it does.
And it's only played on every other Saturday for a very short period of time.
Yeah,
so,
your football season's not long, is it?
Well, they play 12. They play 12 games, and then we have playoffs and bowl games. But really, probably only getting 7 games played on it.
Yeah.
If you're only playing 7 times a year, and otherwise nobody gets on that field, pretty easy to manage. Not like what happens here with
26 rounds for the NRL.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a totally different ball game. So that we continue to work on them and try to get tough there. I'm hoping we have a hell of a cold winter, or a late freeze in the spring, and it kills it, and then maybe we can get tough on there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, it's the certification to make sure that people get exactly what they're paying for.
Yes.
So, what are the criteria usually that you look for at a turf farm?
Well, number one,
I know you said earlier about how many.
Yeah, sure. Well,
but the genetic part of it, though.
It is. Well, we do not do regular genetic testing.
Yeah.
It's all based on morphological characteristics. We're looking at color, leaf density, leaf texture, stolons, internode length, all those physical characteristics that you see.
Yeah.
In Georgia alone, we inspect, just in the state of Georgia, 4,000 hectares of warm season turf. So you start talking about trying to do DNA testing and those sorts.
Hard.
Yeah. So
does that roll into like disease testing at the turf farms?
Well,
when we're do that, or is it
we don't test for disease.
Yeah.
But if we're at a farm and there's an obvious disease problem, if we see
on what to do.
if we see rhizoctonia or pythium or any of the diseases that are common to our area, yes, that is a reason that we can reject or quarantine a field. But we try to work with the growers to make sure that those problems don't get out of hand.
They self-report and self-manage those sort of issues when they arise.
We're there 3 times a year, and then we make sort of drop-in inspections. And I mean, most of our growers, the ones that I see on a regular basis, I mean, hell, they're my friends. You get to know them, and
relationship with
there's
them,
that trust there that it makes it easy to work with.
Yeah.
And so, what are you running on your lawn?
Yeah. Have you got a lawn mullet?
No, I have a shit show of a yard right now, to be completely honest.
Is it for hair or something?
No, well, it's centipede. I hate centipede.
Yeah.
Well, I got remarried back in the fall, and my new bride already has a nice home. The yard's not good, so that's in the process of being renovated.
Yeah.
My desire is to have tough on it.
Yeah.
Front yard's full shade, full sun, hot all day. A few areas with some shade for part of the day. I think Tough will make it because it's probably still going to get 4 hours.
Yeah.
And if it gets 4 hours, it'll hang in there.
Shade can be fixed with a chainsaw.
It can, but my wife loves these massive oak trees we have.
And where I live, to be honest, is a rental house, so
yeah,
I'm not allowed to cut down any more trees than I already have.
Understood.
The sunlight hours at the time, like middle of the day.
Oh yeah, if it's sunny all morning till about 2 o'clock, you're good. And that's kind of where what our yard is. So we've been doing home renovations recently, but hopefully the yard is next if I'm not broke after all these other projects we've had.
The yard's always got to be last.
I'm sure they could spare a little bit off the
Well, that is kind of nice. I mean, I can always get some grass, but as you all know, if you haven't done the prep and everything's not right before you start, you're just asking for trouble.
It's hard to grow grass on builders' concrete and waste. And
Absolutely.
You mentioned the extension aspect. So you probably, like when you go on and you go onto Google and you type how to look after Tough as an example. Sometimes the tech notes from Georgia come up from the extension officers who used to write it. How much are you guys involved with feeding that back, like telling growers that they really need to roll that kind of info out to the market?
Sure. Well, we don't advise growers on fertilizer or chemical applications or anything like that. Frankly, they're better and more knowledgeable than we are. But most of our growers, especially the ones who do a lot in terms of marketing and branding, they're offering soil testing. They've got their own literature that's based on UGA extension research. In the state of Georgia and really across the southeast, all our growers work hand in hand with their land grant university.
Yep.
And they work with them, because if a sod farmer tells, you know, a homeowner or a golf course superintendent, you need to do this, and it's on their letterhead, well, you're just trying to sell me something. Whereas if it's coming from Extension, the university, it adds validity. Kind of like what certification does, it adds validity.
Yeah, it's got that testing regime behind it, and the peer-reviewed stuff. And
yeah.
Oh, that's fair enough. Well, have you're a fan of Australia, which is good. Have you picked an NRL team?
Well, Mick took me to my first NRL game this past Saturday, and we saw the Roosters and the Panthers.
Yep.
And
what did he talk you into? What did he talk you into?
Oh, he didn't. He didn't.
He didn't?
No. The Panthers were impressive. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but they seemed faster and quicker to the ball.
And they got that guy that looks like an inside-out Ugg boot.
Yeah.
Kick out, Billy kick out. Doesn't he?
No, we had a blast at the game, and I think I was probably Mick was probably aggravated with me by the end of the game, because I was asking all these questions. Well, how does this relate to American football, and what did he just do, and all this sort of thing. So. I tell you, those are some tough jokers.
There's some big boys.
I mean, my gosh,
pads, mate, no helmets.
You know, and you can't sub in players. We're subbing in 4 or 5 players every series.
And
so it's just a whole different thing.
I think you get 12. 12?
No, it's 10 now.
10 interchanges per game.
Yeah, that's just foreign to me.
That are 130 kilos and can run 100-meter sprints in
14 seconds, 13 seconds.
And they'll play 60, 70 minutes.
They're as good athletes as anything we have in the States. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, unreal. So you didn't pick a team, all right.
No.
So we can work on that. There's Dolphins, mate.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
A little bit further south of the Broncos,
yeah.
Who would probably be, I think they'd be close to like the Patriots of the NFL.
Yeah.
Long-standing.
It's a big call.
You know,
big call, Mick.
Win a lot of premierships. They haven't been most successful recently, but they did have one of the best premiership averages. It was every 3 years they'd win the comp.
Well, really? Yeah, that does sound like the Patriots.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about my team. we last won in 2005, and we've done nothing since.
Hey, don't feel bad. The University of Georgia won their first football championship in 40 years this year.
Nice.
So
I'm a West Tigers man, and we've got 16 teams at the moment, 17 coming in next year. So it's the top 8 go on to the finals. My team regularly comes 9th. And it's usually the last game of the season that decides whether they finished in 8th or 9th, and they always lose that last game.
That sounds a lot like our Atlanta Falcons. They're not good.
Yeah,
they're not good.
Well, I was always a Colts fan. And because I had a friend of mine who's a big Bills fan, and when we were younger, the Colts used to beat the Bills to put them out of the finals or something like that. So, so I'll support them, because my best mate was a Bills fan.
Oh, the Buffalo Bills, that's the worst story in NFL football. They have come so close so many times.
Yeah.
At one point, they were in the Super Bowl, I think 3 or 4 years in a row. They lost every one of them.
Yeah.
They can't do it. They can't finish the drill. But whatever, it's fun.
Killer of the AFL. For all those Saints fans at home.
Oh, unreal.
Yeah.
So anyway, mate, thank you very much for your time, and it's good to meet you.
Thank you. Appreciate the hospitality.
It's great to see that
you.
There is actually someone who checks on your turf to make sure you buy the legit stuff.
Absolutely. And if you buy AUSGAP certified turf, without question, it's going to be some of the best, highest quality, genetically pure grass you're going to buy.
And you get that certification to back that up.
Absolutely. You know where that grass came from. You know what farm it came off of, and if there's a problem, the LSA growers, the AUSGAP members will make sure they make it right for you.
That's magnificent. Thank you.